For most of us in business, regulations, they feel like this impossible maze, right? But what if I told you that maze is actually the blueprint for a fortress? That's what we're digging into today, how to turn that compliance headache into your biggest competitive advantage, a real protective moat.
So let's be honest, when you think of regulations, you probably think burden. It's a cost, it's a pain, it's just something you have to manage. But what if that's completely the wrong way to look at it? I mean, what if these rules aren't just a shield to protect you, but a weapon you can actually use to win?
Look, every single business, I don't care if you're a startup or a giant corporation, has to find its way through this regulatory maze. And yeah, one wrong turn, it can spell big trouble. But here's the thing, and this is the secret. This maze isn't just a random jumble of walls. It has a logic. It has a map. And if you can get your hands on that map, well, that's the key to not just surviving, but absolutely thriving.
All right, so where do we find this map? Well, it starts with decoding the rulebook itself. And it's not as scary as it sounds because it really just breaks down into three main layers. Once you get these down, you're taking that first big step from, just reacting to problems to thinking strategically.
So here they are, the three layers of the rulebook. First up, you've got your basic industry regulations. Then there's licensing and certifications, basically your permission slip to be in business. And finally, you have standards and guidelines, which is all about how you conduct yourself. Let's dive into each one.
Okay, layer one, industry regulations. Think of this as the absolute bedrock, the foundation. These are the laws that are just non-negotiable for your field. And you got to look at this from two angles. You've got your local stuff, cities, state, country. And then, more and more, you've got international rules that can affect everything from your supply chain to your customers, especially when it comes to data.
All right, next up, we've got licensing. This is basically your official permission slip, your hall pass to do business. We're talking about the permits you need just to open your doors, plus the certifications that, give you credibility. But here's the kicker. It's not a one-and-done deal. You have to keep them up to date. Missing a renewal can literally shut your business down just as fast as not having a license at all.
And that brings us to the third layer, which is all about the accepted rules of the game, standards and guidelines. This is a big one. It covers everything from quality and safety standards that keep your customers safe to environmental regulations, all the way to, of course, the huge one today, data privacy and security. It's all about protecting your customers and their info. Okay, so we've got the map of the maze. Now let's talk about why getting through it correctly is so, critical. Because the stakes, they are incredibly high. Getting this wrong is literally what separates the success stories from the cautionary tales you read about. And this really puts it all in perspective, doesn't it? Think about it like two paths. On one path, you have the cost of compliance. Yeah, it's renewal fees. It's paying your team. It's predictable. But on the other path, that's the cost of failure. And we're talking about devastating fines, crippling penalties, and the one thing that's so hard to buy back, your reputation. And just so we're crystal clear, we are not talking about a slap on the wrist here. These fines for noncompliance can literally wipe out your profits overnight. So the big takeaway really is this. Stop thinking of compliance as an expense. It's not. It's an insurance policy against total financial disaster. And look, this isn't something you can just check off a list and forget about. The rulebook is basically a living document. It's always being rewritten. To stay ahead, you have to be vigilant, like all the time. You've got to know who makes the rules, how often they change them, and, this is crucial, someone in your organization has to own it. This has to be their job. All right, we've talked about the map, we've talked about the dangers lurking in the maze, but now we get to the fun part, the twist. This is where everything flips. We're going to shift from playing defense, just trying to avoid penalties, to playing offense. How do we take these exact same rules and turn them into a serious advantage? There's a name for this, and it's strategic compliance. It's really an art form. It's about seeing this whole regulatory maze not as some kind of trap designed to catch you, but as a training ground. A way to use these requirements to make your business stronger, smarter, and frankly, a heck of a lot harder to compete with. So what's the first huge advantage? You build a barrier to entry. Remember all that complexity, all those headaches you went through to learn the rules? Well, for a new competitor trying to get into your space, that's a massive wall. By mastering the maze yourself, you're basically building that protective moat we talked about. It keeps the unprepared rivals out. Advantage number 2 is all about trust, which gives you a huge competitive edge. When your customers know you play by the rules, and not just play by them, but excel at them, they trust you. Think about it like this. A tough new data privacy law comes out. What do most companies do? They groan, they complain, and they do the absolute bare minimum to get by. But not you. You decide to go all in. You don't just comply, you make world-class security a core feature of what you sell. All of a sudden, that regulation isn't a cost anymore. It's your number one marketing tool. You become the safe choice. Compliance just became your best selling point.
And finally, the third advantage is that sometimes the rule changes themselves create brand new opportunities. A new environmental standard could suddenly create massive demand for green tech that, hey, you can provide. A new data privacy law? That might create a whole new market for compliance consulting services that you're now perfectly positioned to offer. If you're paying attention and you're ahead of the curve, you can be the first one to spot these openings. So it all comes down to this. The question you should be asking isn't just how do we stay compliant? The real question, the better question, is how can we use compliance to win? That right there, that's the mindset shift. That's how you turn that frustrating regulatory maze into the blueprint for your very own competitive moat.